This podcast is intended and contains general information on financial strategies, investments, and products only. Whilst Luke and I are both licensed financial advisors, we don't know your personal circumstances, goals, or objectives. We highly recommend that you reach out to your financial advisor or investment professional to discuss any of the topics that we've covered today before taking any action. Our full disclosure, copies of our financial services guide, and additional information about Seneca Financial Solutions and Bold Wealth can be found in the show notes.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Wealth Toil. My name is Luke Laretive. I'm from Seneca Financial Solutions, and today I'm here with the man, the mystery, one of the 5 greatest rappers of all time, Pargiter-Green. DPG, how are you, mate?
Dialing. I spit hot fire.
It's a bad Dave Chappelle show reference.
Terrible.
I apologise to anyone who's not a what are we, a Gen Y? Millennial? Whatever we are.
I think we're millennials.
If you're not in your mid-30s, you probably missed that one. But, mate, good to see you.
Great to see you, mate. It's been a good week. We're Friday today. For anyone's listening, we meant to record on Tuesday, but both
the poor producers who were like, could you guys just record on like a consistent day once a week? And we're just like, we'll do that. We'll do that next week, and then we just
pick a day and we won't record on it. Basically.
Yeah, we'll pretend like we're going to record on that day and then never actually do it on that day.
Sorry to Simo and Sophie who organised all of that for us. Big shout out to them for putting up with us.
Yes, they're very nice.
It's been a good week. We've been busy. I think it's been a good week in markets. Bit of a bounce back since the big crash.
Oh yes, the big market crash that everyone, the US recession. We just had retail sales data out last night from the US, and it doesn't look like there's a recession happening. I'll give you the hot tip.
Doesn't look like there was a recession happening, and inflation was also down earlier in the week.
I think look, I'm not an expert, but that's a pretty good cocktail for equities. I'm just
weird,
going to throw
isn't
it out
it?
there.
It's weird. It's as though the stars are aligning, and the doom and gloom of the last month has just disappeared into dust.
We will be at ASX new highs by the end of the month. I'll give you the hot tip. So,
hot tip.
Anyway, so we 16th of August today on the record. Mate, today we've been doing a lot of market stuff. I've been talking a lot.
It's reporting season. You've been busy.
It's unlike me, but I think today we're going to do something a little bit different. It's a question that I get asked a lot about. How did I start my business? Should I start a business? Someone else asking me, should I start a business? And I suppose we thought we would talk about, what we think are some of the sort of maybe deciding factors or helping tips that people can think about if they're thinking about starting a business, and maybe some of the learnings that we've both had from starting a business. You are in year what of Bold Wealth?
Year 2, near the end of year 2.
2 years of Bold Wealth. I am just about to tick over 7 years since we started Seneca, and it's been the best, most rewarding, most challenging thing I've ever done. And I'm sure you would agree. I mean, year 2, like I was just so far behind where you are in year 2. So I think it's an interesting topic, and I think a lot of people have ambitions to start a business. And I don't necessarily think it's the best thing for most people to do, but we can get into that. What would you say, Dill, if I had to say, what is your number one criteria that you would say, if I said, Dill, should I start a business? What do you think? What's your sort of, go-to advice or go-to line that you say to people?
Do you have something that other people want? Like, that's number one, right? Is the business that you're starting something that is in demand? And do you have a minimum viable version of that you think is a competitor or a better version of what exists already?
So when you started Bold, what did you feel like what was the marketplace that you felt you were coming into, and why did you think that you could succeed?
I think relatively unique to a lot of industries. The financial advice industry had just been through a Royal Commission, so 2019, the Hayne Royal Commission, and that caused a lot of pain for a lot of existing businesses. We saw over the period of 2019 to 2021 around 10,000 financial advisors leave the industry. And yet that also coincided with a time where we had COVID, so it was a market scare, and people all over the country going through lockdowns and having relatively high rates of savings and a lot of time on their hands, I think, to consider their own financial position. You didn't know
those things were coming. Like the year before you started your business, you didn't know those things were coming. So,
well, they happened before I started my business.
Oh, so you actually kicked off at Bold in COVID.
Well, I kicked off at Bold. Bold kicked off the year after the main bit of COVID. So end of 2022 was when.
So when were you thinking about first doing it? Like when was the genesis of the idea, sort of thing? When you're like, I've had enough of this. I'm going.
Probably about a week into being a financial advisor and not owning my own business, but that's a very personal thing as well, because I'm so meticulous or anal about the way that things are done. So you want to I've been told that I care too much about the minutiae, but I think that also has made Bold successful early, and we get a lot of love on it from the people that are with us, so that's fine. But I think what I saw was an industry, and it was the opportune moment to go, you know what, this is the time for me to do this. It was something that I knew that was probably I was always going to do, but when you decide to do it, it's very important. And the reason I say, do you have something that is in high demand, or do you have something that people want? I saw this opportunity to go, well, you know what? We've had an almost halving of the number of advisors, and there is an exponentially higher amount of people and an exponentially higher amount of wealth that needs managing in this country. So that, to me, is reducing supply and exceptionally high demand. That's a good business.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really smart way to look at it. Look, the point I wrote down was, can you make sales? And what you're saying is when you've got a tailwind of an industry that is shrinking in supply and you've got increasing demand for the same product or service, it's going to be easier to make sales. I think the thing that often prospective business owners get caught up in is the practitionership, i.e., in our job, that would be writing the financial plans, dealing with the clients, making the investment decisions. I think in reality, what's more important is can you attract a new customer, and can you charge them a price for that service or that product. So I think making sales and being a salesman is the most important skill to being an entrepreneur.
You can open the best looking coffee shop and you can be the best barista in the whole world.
Correct.
But if you don't have the ability to go out and tell new people that you have a coffee shop and that your coffee is better than someone else's, you're not going to be able to use any of those fancy tools that you've got.
And I think in like coffee, kind of like financial advice, it's a little bit subjective. Particularly, I think services in particular are.
I thought you were going to say it's a little bit addictive, like coffee and financial advice.
It is addictive, but I think the most important sort of part of that is that you need to be able to sell. You need to be able to convince people that you're good, and in our industry, demonstrate that you're good. And I think that's very difficult, and it's part of the reason why we do this podcast, is to talk about stuff like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about opportunity cost? So I'll give you an example, right? So I spoke to someone recently. They were asking me about should I start a business? They were on 250,000 plus, and thinking of leaving and going out and doing their own thing. And I just sort of said, look, when I ran the numbers, you probably never pay back the opportunity, the salary that you're going to give up. And so I do think that opportunity cost is probably something that people don't think about, is that, okay, I'm not going to be earning as much money at the start of my business as what I'm earning now. How many years of not earning that equivalent money, and what the gap between what you're on salary and what you're on as an entrepreneur, do you actually get a payback? And particularly some industries where, you can't really sell your business for a big multiple at the end. I think here of, which I've got a few clients like the building industry, But there's others as well where your business at the end isn't saleable. You've got to make all your cash in the business. I think understanding that opportunity cost and the extra hassle, stress, financial commitment, blah, 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 all the bad things that go in with running a business are often overlooked. And, I know certainly for me, whilst I've put, a fair bit of money into Seneca over the years, I've also not been able to invest in shares in the markets, which I was quite successful at before starting Seneca when I had a lot of excess cash. And I was also earning, pretty good money, which the first 2 years at Seneca, I paid myself next to nothing. So, minimum wage type stuff. So I think the opportunity cost of starting a business from a financial perspective is really important to quantify and to understand, and that there's not just the equity that you might put in as a initial capital injection, but also that sweat equity that is the cost of what you'd otherwise be getting paid working in the markets as a salaried employee in someone else's business.
I think if I'm reflecting on starting Bold and probably similar to you, I was fortunate in that I worked in a management role of another financial planning practice, and I had a very, very good understanding of what my costs were going to be prior to starting the business and how much and what was necessary for me to do that. And so, classic planner, I planned it to the absolute nth degree. And I was very fortunate in that I had a supportive director who was very, very supportive of me going out and doing this, and to the point where we still share an office, we still catch up at Christmas and all those sorts of things. So I was very lucky, and I don't think that a word of advice to anyone who's looking at going out, starting a business, doing what they're doing now and just running away with it. That's a challenge. You faced that challenge, and it was very rewarding for you, but very, very difficult. And so different circumstances. But the biggest thing is you went into that knowing, and I went into that knowing what my potential first couple of years was going to look like. And knowing that stuff, like knowledge is power. Knowing and understanding.
I knew, but I didn't really, I think the two things about starting a business that are absolute prerequisites for everyone who starts a business is, number one, you need a bit of ignorance as bliss. You need to be dumb enough to do it. That's kind of the I think part of it. And the other part is I think it needs to be, if you're asking yourself, should I start a business? Probably the answer is no. I think for me it was really a case of I had to start a business. Where I was working, I just couldn't be there anymore. I couldn't deal with the people. I didn't like the person I was becoming working there. I didn't like the culture of the place. I thought we could do it better. I was sick of hearing everyone else whinging about how that was, telling me every day, oh, they should do this and they should do that. And I was just like, I don't want to whinge every day at work. I don't want to be here complaining. I want to be out there doing these things and proving to people that this is the right way to do that. This is the right culture. This is the right way to run a business. And so, I think it's more a case of I didn't have a choice to start a business. I kind of just had to, because I was just so overwhelmed with kind of, I suppose emotion, really not emotion, but I just really wanted it. I really wanted to start a business, and I didn't care about the financial metrics and the plans and the stuff. And sure, like we planned, Vic and I worked our butts off. Like, it's not you just do this stuff gung ho. But I certainly, from a personal perspective, I was like, look, I've made money. I've proved I can make money. I've proved I can, get a really high salary. I've proved I can be really good at this stockbroking and financial advice business. I don't need to prove it to anyone anymore. I've had the money and I didn't enjoy it. So if I give it all up and start at scratch again, well, if I built it once, I'll build it again. And that was sort of my attitude, and that's a little bit naive, but it's also kind of how I do things. And
I think it speaks though to some of those non-financial reasons to start a business as well, like having your own business. If people said to me, starting Bold, what's the best thing that you've gotten out of that? The best thing is not necessarily, yes, it's been successful, and yes, I'm on track to do well out of it over the years. And
you would have made more money to this point staying where you were, definitely.
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, that I can stand up and be incredibly proud of the fact that it's mine and people are coming to me, or me and Danny and Bill, the three of us, and talking to us about something that we have put 120% of our values and, sweat and time into. And they, everything I do is about clients and making sure that they're in the best possible position. And the fact that I can stand behind that and say, cool, I have a business and that helps people. That's the best possible thing that Bold has done for me. It's the best possible thing that Bold's done for since it's begun, and it will continue to be that way. And that's
also altruistic.
Well, but that's a non-financial benefit, right? And yes, you know what? I can see the future. I can see that future benefit of financial outcomes and things as well. But that non-financial benefit means that you get through those first few years of potentially lower earnings and things. It still has to be something that you're working towards a good outcome. And if you can just,
of course,
you're not like, it's not a charity, right? Like, so, but yeah, I think that side of things is often, I guess, lower down the list when you're putting your pros and cons of why you should start than what it should be.
I think the other important thing, when you're starting, it is hard and it doesn't always work, and I don't encourage anyone who starts a business. I still talk about just, not quitting and carrying on, but sometimes it does get to the point where you want to quit, and it's better to quit. And that's the best thing to do, is to start something else and move on to the next thing. And shouldn't be ashamed of that. I'm stoked for people who start a business. I think it's the best thing you can ever do. And if it doesn't work out, you're way better off for having done it than not done it. But you do have to think about your bailout position. And I always thought about that. I was like, what's the worst case scenario here? It's like, well, I'll go get a job in the mining industry. I know I'm employable there. I know what I can do. I know that's there forever. And I'll just go and do what I've always done, which is, sell something else to someone else. But
it's like buying stocks, right? Like, lots of people good at starting businesses. Not many people are good at closing them or selling them.
Yeah. And so I just sort of thought, well, if that's my bailout position, it'll take me a year or two to save up enough money to kind of get myself back on my feet. If I had to move home for a bit, I could do that. We'd have to go to Perth and move home. Or like Claire always had a good job and support. I mean, the reason Seneca exists is because Claire worked, right? And Claire, and we didn't have a lot of expenses, and that's why we're here. Is not because of anything I've done, but more so because of what I was able to do, because of what Claire was sort of doing it at home to keep the wheels ticking over and pay the bills. So I think, look, you need a lot of things to make a business work, and there's no secret formula to success. But I think it is always interesting having a conversation. I mean, it's something that we've talked about a bit over the last year or so, getting to know each other. And certainly, I find it really interesting. It's actually what I'm passionate about. I'm not passionate about markets or investing. People think I am. I'm not. To me, that's just business. It's just a really like a day-to-day representation of small business, and I love it. That's what I'm actually passionate about is small business. And
markets are just businesses.
They are. They're just businesses, and so that's my interest area. Dill, I wanted to ask about lessons learned as a kind of continuation of this topic, I suppose, and what would be, as a business owner operating, running your day to day, what would be maybe one or two of the key learnings you would say that you didn't know before you started your business, or you thought you could handle before you started your business, and you sort of had to adapt and change or learn along the journey? I know there's lots, but what would
there's so many
things that immediately click to mind are always
the first one is that you can't do everything, and particularly when you're coming from an industry, the same industry that you were working in, and you move into working in that industry but working for yourself, you learn very quickly that there is such a large number of very, very small tasks that don't seem like a big deal when you're employed doing the one job, right?
Can't be that hard. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But you're like, how hard is it to just send out an email to everyone once a month to update them on this? Or how hard is it to do? But those really small things, it's like that they add up very, very quickly. And all of a sudden, 3/4 of your week is taken up doing
admin.
Really, really admin-based tasks. Now, you look at them individually and they are just the most mundane, boring, easy things to do. But if you put them all on a list, you'll use several pages of a notepad. They add up. And so the one thing that I would say is don't try and be a master of everything. Make sure when you set up a business that you have the right people around you to do the things, to take those sorts of things away so that you can continue to be doing the expert job and growing what the core of the business is.
I think, when you're starting out, you've got no money, so you've got no income, and you've got to do a lot of stuff, because as my key learning, and it sort of dovetails quite nicely here, is that costs operate on 100% margin. So, a dollar saved is a dollar earned, and it's earned on 100% margin. If I make a sale, well, I only keep the gross margin of that because I've got a cost of goods sold. Whereas if I cut out $100 worth of costs, well, that's just another $100 that's in my pocket because the margin's already come out of it. So I think it's really,
you know how stingy I am.
You are the cost saving man. So I think it's finding a balance. It's finding a balance that works for you. I'm big on outsourcing, and we've always outsourced everything except our core business from day one, and we continue to do that. But I've definitely done it inefficiently at times, and I've certainly overspent on things that I wish I hadn't overspent on. And JB consistently reminds me of my incompetencies as a leader and an asset allocator. But the point is
JB is probably an expense that you could get rid of. To be fair.
I agree. He's probably. I think he needs a salary cut. But
love you, JB.
I think all I'm trying to say here is that managing your costs and thinking about ways you can save money or ways you can deliver your services, ways you can build your products, which have better economics in terms of the price that you pay to do those things is an invaluable skill, and finding economies of scale as your business scales is really important. And I think that leads into, I suppose, what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, starting from scratch, you can't have someone doing all of those admin tasks. You can't have 3 people employed, and
so you've got to keep those costs down. But I think employees versus contractors is a fantastic example. So we've always utilised where we can contractors and other people's businesses in our business, because I can hire them on different hours. I can use hours, I can use time more variably, and fixed cost overheads. I just think like salaries and employing people, whilst you feel great, I've got 22 employees and it's all sort of braggart stuff. At the end of the day, I want no employees if possible. The reality is I can't get away with that, but that would be my ideal situation. Is there's no super to pay, there's no HR to manage them. There's no, severance if you want to get rid of them. There's no annual leave. These are all, all good things. Right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't pay them or anything like that. Don't get me wrong.
No.
It's just it's a business.
It's a classic example though, right? And the one that comes up for me a lot with business owners is doing your own books. We have do not do your own books. We have the most wonderful bookkeeper. I love her. Her name's Karen. Book it Bookkeeping. Absolute wonderful business. Legends. I love you, Karen. But seriously, that is something that it takes her, I reckon, less than 1/20th of the time that it would take me to do it. And it costs less than 1/10 of an employee to do that job for the year for the business. And it is the same thing as you are having an expert in different areas of your own financial life, an expert of different areas in your personal life for services that you use. Your business is no different. You have people that are experts to do only the things that you need to do, and don't pay them super. Let them pay themselves super, and use a company or use a person who is an expert at that as a contractor.
100%.
That's just such a common one. Sorry to all the people who work in bookkeeping in internal companies, and we're maybe selling you out of a job, but
look, Dill, that's what we do, right?
Start a bookkeeping business.
we are just financial advisors that would be salaried and employed somewhere else. And instead of that, we run our own business, and we service multiple clients, instead of servicing just one, which would be our boss or the company that we work for. So look, it is very interesting. I think one final thing we might just touch on would be, if you could do it again, if you started again, to rewind 2 years, forget about the timing and all the COVID stuff, but what would be one thing you'd do differently?
Oh, start podcasting earlier with you, mate. No, I think, what would we do differently? I think that, I mean, it sounds funny, but we'd probably do a little bit more planning in some areas. So, I mean, you can't plan everything, right?
You can't.
You can't. And
you wish that you could, but you can't.
The things that I'm working on in the business now are things that I wish that I had have done 2 years ago. But well,
give me an example. Give me an example. Like, we're trying to be practical here.
Yeah. Well, so, you know, we started the business with an existing client base, which was very fortunate. You know, a lot of the three of us.
You paid good money for that, so let's not.
That's right. Yeah, we didn't just walk away with them. We purchased a client book to start the business, and very, very fortunate that all of those clients happened to be my clients already, and they loved the fact that we were starting bold. I would 100% do that again, but because we had an existing book from a previous business, some of the legacy of that business that we no longer want to have in our or we no longer wanted to have in our new business remains. And so I think that, look, if you are buying an existing business...
JB and I call that greenfields, brownfields. There's benefits to both, but it's a brownfields business has legacy issues.
Absolutely. And so, you know, where we sort of, in a perfect world, you start with 100% of your processes ready and 100% of everything ready. You know, the thing I would probably go back and think about is having a few more things prepared to help with the transition of those clients, because the first 12 months of that was a very, very, very large amount of work. Yeah. And whilst we absolutely got through it, I think Danny, Bill and myself all look back on that and going, wow, like I can't believe that we
achieved that,
did 300 and something SOAs in the first 12 months of the business, which is just insane. Like, for context, we might do generally like 50 to 75 a year, and we did 300 and something in the first year.
It's huge. I think the important thing, I suppose, is, you know, being another sort of 5 years down the road from where you are, we have been through so many iterations of technology, you know, platform, service, broker, blah, 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 blah. You know, like, we've just CRMs, God, graphic designers, like, we've just tried absolutely, or it feels like absolutely everything. And I know that no other small business is any different, but God, I hate it. And I wish that I could have just took my 7 years of learning. I said to someone else recently, if I had my 7 years of learning, I could do what I've done it in 7 years in 7 months. But you don't know what you don't know. And it's actually impossible to go backwards. I think for me, I would just be a little bit kinder to myself. That would be my main takeaway is, you know, particularly Vic and I, who really, you know, have driven out the business since as long as I can remember now. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get this right. Now, we did a lot of things really well in hindsight, and we did a few things wrong and a few things that were sort of halfway right, halfway wrong. But I kind of, even to this day, I still sort of berate myself for the things that I didn't get right, or the things that, you know, like you're saying, oh, I could have done it this way and I should have, you know, it would have been good if. The reality is, I think, you know, these days I sort of don't worry about it too much. I'm just improving. And yeah, sometimes that will mean that things don't go as smoothly as you'd like, or that costs you a few more dollars or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you think it's the right thing to do, you're doing the best you can at the time with the available information, very much like investing. And sometimes you get lucky and other times you don't. And that's just the way. That's just the way. The rub of the green. And you know, it is what it is. And I just wish I was a bit more during the process when you're really under the pump. Just wish I was just a little bit easier on myself and didn't take things so hard. But I think every business owner, you're so emotionally invested in what you're doing, you just can't. You can't not.
100%. I think. Whilst that is, you know, definitely being easy on yourself and being good on yourself, but the reason that you got through that, and likewise the reason we got through the first year of, you know, massive amounts of work, is because we had really high standards of ourselves and really high standards of what we wanted to achieve. And yes, it's good to be easy
you're probably
on yourself.
right.
I actually look back on that time, it was a year ago now, but I look back on that in the first few months and things of starting and sort of that immediate workload that came through. And I go, that's messed up. Like, there's so much stuff to do. But I'm so glad that we did it.
Oh, I think
glad. And challenges like that. Yeah, challenges like that. Yeah, it's good to be easy on yourself, but don't be too easy on yourself, because if you get a little bit lax and too easy on yourself, you'll fall down that slippery slope quite quickly.
It's easy to say, yeah, I shouldn't have gone so hard when I went super hard, turned over all the rocks, did everything possible, and you feel satisfied with your effort. So I don't take that back. I do think I should have been a bit easier on Vic, and I should have taken it a bit easier. But that being said, you're right. It is why we're probably here, or part of the reason why we're here. We're here probably by the good graces of luck and a little bit of skill as well. But certainly, it was definitely hard those first 2.5 years, really hard, and then it's kind of got progressively easier since then. But yeah, I think for anyone who's thinking about starting a business or wants to start a business, I can only encourage you to have a really hard think about it and be really critical about it. And if you look at all the evidence and it all stacks up against you, and you still really want to do it, then you're probably in the right headspace to do it.
Right headspace, but wrong industry. If all of the evidence is suggested that you don't do it, then
look, I don't agree. I think I saw something with Mark Zuckerberg on social media the other day, and not that I'm the biggest Mark Zuckerberg or Facebook fan, but it was interesting. He said, Facebook wasn't a novel idea. There was Friendster, there was MySpace, Microsoft, Google. They'd all tried various iterations, and at every stage along the way, somebody was saying to him, "Oh, this already exists. Social media is a fad." And then later it was like, "Oh, I don't know how it will transition to mobile." And then, I don't know how you're going to monetize, and I don't know if you can be profitable. And there's always skeptics, and that's one thing I have learned running a business is that it's kind of like the man in the arena, Teddy Roosevelt type sort of quote. But at the end of the day, people only praise people in hindsight. Everyone's skeptical up front and they praise out the back. So it's only after you're already successful and you don't care about other people's opinions anymore will anyone ever tell you that you're doing a good job. I only ever get credit for what we're doing at Seneca now in year 6 and 7. And I think that the key thing is to have a really strong kind of, core kind of driver that you're doing the right thing. You kind of know what you're doing, and because no one's going to give you any credit, and everyone's going to constantly tell you that, this isn't going to work, or, have you thought about this? And it's always skepticism and negativity.
Yeah. That's better advice, though, I think. Like, credit where credit is due is a saying for a reason, and when you've built something, you should be given the credit. I think that the mollycoddling of younger people being told, hey, you're doing a great job, everything's going to work out for you in the world, that's bullshit, right? Like, work hard. And be inspiring as a young person and go and do the hard stuff, and then and earn your credit.
But I think Dill is the other thing. People, just because you work hard doesn't mean you win, right? Like that's what makes working hard.
Yeah, but it's a good indicator, so great, right? Like,
yeah, I agree. You're giving yourself the best chance, or you're stacking the odds in your favor, and you work hard for long enough, you probably will win. But it certainly doesn't mean your first business is going to work, or your second business is going to work, or your third business is going to work.
Well, maybe it's the combination of
and it's all the skills you learn over the time that probably sum total, if you're persistent enough, to have some success. But I don't, I'm not one of those people who think that I'm, any success that I've had is because of I'm an incalculable math problem that's been sum total of my entire existence, probably my parents' entire existence, every environmental thing that's happened to me over the journey. I'm not dumb enough to think that I'm special. It's just the math has just played out, and I am who I am, and this is where I am, and we're doing this podcast, and it's just
that's it. We're all just bloody atoms, mate. That is That's it. But look, you know what? If you pair up what we said at the very start, have a good idea, right? But it can't just be a good idea that there's lots of, or an exceedingly large number. It's got to be a good idea that other people want. If only you think something is a good idea, go out and ask lots of people whether or not it is something that they want or they value. You can't.
I don't know, Dill. I think there's also the what other, if you can just be better than your next door neighbour, then that I think that's a good business strategy too. I'll tell you an example. In Perth, people from Perth and from Scarborough will know, on Brighton Road in Scarborough, there's been an award-winning bakery since before I was born. It's been there. I know it's been there from the early 80s, right? And they had all the gold ribbons from all the royal shows, and they had pies and sausage.
Righto, yeah.
Right, but it wasn't actually that good of a bakery by 2024. By today's sort of standards, doesn't. And there was an old hardware store there that got closed down because Bunnings overran them and put it out of business. And a French patisserie bakery was getting built in there. And I remember talking to my mum, and she said, "Oh, my mum goes, I don't know how they're going to go. It's not you're two bakeries on the same strip, like little, this is a little suburban strip shop." And I said, "Mum, they're going to kill it." I said, "The reality is that they're just going, well, the people already want bread. We know they're here. We're just going to do better bread."
Yeah.
And they'll come to us.
But it's
a crowded marketplace. But if you're the best, doesn't matter.
But that's it. But it's a crowded marketplace for something that people want, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, bread.
But not financial advice.
Well, I mean, I think, yeah.
I think on that illustrious business note.
Yeah, I'm going to go make some toast.
Yeah, I think it's time for lunch.
For a sandwich.
Yeah.
Any other bread-based...
No analogies. No further analogies for today. Mate, that was quite interesting. I think, personally, I enjoyed that podcast. I don't know if any of the listeners will, but I enjoyed hearing a bit about how you've been thinking about things in your business and you starting up to this point. I hate the word journey, so we're going to avoid using that. But I'm really pleased for you, mate, that you've made it to year 2. It's a big achievement. As people, whenever everyone asks me how my business is going, I just say still solvent. And it's about the best I can ask for. So, mate, long may your solvency continue, and hopefully these podcasts. And I will catch you next week.
Absolutely, mate. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Chat soon. Bye.
Bye.